right, guys. So Robbie and I actually had a great conversation, and there was a giant ID10T problem
Again.
again, where I didn't press the record button. So we already got. First off, welcome to the Roman Dave podcast, the RDPP, and my first guest of 2024 is Robbie. So, woo!
Thanks for having me again.
Thanks for coming on again. And so we already did our drinks, got some nice beers from the tap over there. And because this is done in my garage, so it gets so cold that the pipe's kind of frozen. So it had a hard time coming out. So we're just going to skip all that. But so today we are going to talk, and we can't recreate what we did because we don't have scripts or anything like that. We just talk.
Right.
But we'll kind of recap everything that we talked about. But today's show is mainly going to be about OCR, obstacle course races, and how we got into it, how you got into it, and then we're going to try to dip into the Royal Rumble if we got time, and some other things that were going on today as far as WWE is concerned. But so we'll start over. I'm so mad because it was a good conversation. It was a real good conversation. All right, but we're gonna, as Stone Cold Steve Austin said, we're gonna call it in the ring. All right, we're gonna call it as we go. So, all right, so we're gonna start over. So, OCR is short for obstacle course races, which is where they're usually 5Ks, 10Ks, or whatever that has obstacles in it. Whether it's like monkey bars, rope climbing, carrying things from one place to the other, obstacles.
Yeah.
How did you get into that?
So, back in 2016, I decided I was just going to get back into shape. I turned 30, and I was just looking for, some motivation.
Right.
So I was like, I'm going to get into shape. So I started walking a lot, and then I transitioned into running.
Right.
And then I heard through the grapevine about this race in Erie called the Beast on the Bay.
Mm-hmm.
So in about March, I signed up for it, and it's in September, so I had a few months to train.
Yeah. Half the year.
Yeah, half a year. Long story short, I ended up doing that with my friend Chris Bimber, who does most of them with me.
Yeah.
And that's how I really got started into it. So the first time I did the Beast on the Bay, I had no idea what it was. I just kind of Googled it online. It's, a 10-mile race through sand on the peninsula.
Mm-hmm.
With, I think then, I don't think it was 30 obstacles then. I want to say it was more like 20.
Okay.
So I was like, can't be too bad,
Yeah.
Well, it was. It was not easy at all. And again, I was in good shape.
Mm-hmm.
I just wasn't in good running shape.
There's a difference between being in good shape and being in good OCR shape.
Yeah, and that's what I've learned over a long period of time. Like I kind of really wasn't, even though I was a good shape, I didn't really train for something like that. I was training more for just my weight control, rather than being able to go distances and keep pace with like, I don't know how to put it in words, but you know what I'm saying. I really wasn't preparing myself to have the stamina to go 10 miles.
Well, yeah, and then so one of the things is people don't understand about like health and fitness is there's so many different layers to health and fitness, right? Like you can work out to become a strongman, right? Like a Eddie Hall, Mark Henry. There's working out, so there's bodybuilding like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and a couple, other guys. And then there's like stuff that like I do is, and like what sounds like what you're doing is to lose weight. And then there's distance running, and then there's like football. There's so many different, like you just don't work out in general and then do something specific, right?
No, right.
Yeah, and so nothing outside of running on sand trains you to run on sand.
No, nothing. I mean, the only other thing probably close enough that you could try to do is run in the snow, but it's still sand is harder.
Yeah, sand's way harder.
Yeah. especially when it's dry.
Oh, dry sand's the worst.
Yeah.
I, especially, there's a technique to running, right? You know, and so like David Goggins would say that your feet should be like pistons. The second it hits the ground, it should be up, and then your body should be under control. Like don't bob, you know. I don't do that.
Right.
I'm not a distance runner. I run, you know, but my whole foot, bam, hits the ground, and then the sand just goes, you know. But yeah, so yeah, the Beast on. So you started in 2016, and you did a Beast on the Bay, and that was the only race that you did.
Yeah, so I did that in September, and then my buddy Chris and I, we found this small race in Corey, PA. It was called the Apex Run, which is more of like a mud run type thing.
Okay.
It was about, I think it was about 5 miles, trails, a few small hills, you know, like a tire flip, some monkey bars.
Do they still do it?
But mud. No, I don't think they do. I mean, I've tried to look it up just to see if it was still around, and I haven't seen anything since like maybe 2017.
Okay.
So yeah, so we did that in October, and then
The following year, or that year?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, same year. Because I saw that, I was like, well, let's see what else they have around here. You know, if there's anything close. So we did that, and it was fun, but
Yeah.
it wasn't nearly as challenging as the Beast on the Bay was.
Now, what's that one race that's supposed to take place at the Speedway?
Oh, the terrain race.
The terrain race. Is it kind of like the terrain race?
Yeah, it's a little bit better than the terrain race.
It can't be much worse.
Yeah, but it was just a local thing. I think it was put on by the Corey YMCA,
Oh, okay.
so it's to help raise money for them.
Oh,
and
cool.
It was fun, and I would probably say there was maybe 150 people, maybe total.
That's not a bad
Yeah.
turnout,
Yeah,
especially
it was
for a
fun.
small thing.
Yeah, it was good, and it was, you know, we had a lot of fun doing it, and you know, that's kind of like got my foot in the door.
Yeah.
Doing the mud side. Now, after doing the sand side and seeing that, then this kind of opened the door to the mud side.
Yeah. Mud or sand? Which one do you prefer?
Well, it depends. It depends on the race. I'll go sand all day, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
I would do.
Yeah, mud is awful. It depends. Well, it depends too. So, like for instance, we do a race every year at Holiday Valley, which has a decent amount of mud, but it's not. It's not the mud from like Ohio.
Now,
Mud is not even. That's.
now when you say mud from Ohio, I know what you mean, right?
Yeah.
But explain to people that don't know anything about what we're talking about. Explain them what you're talking about.
Okay, so the mud in the race at Holiday Valley is just natural forest mud that you kind of just, you know, you put your foot in it and, you know, it makes you slide around a little bit. It's not crazy.
Soft landing.
The mud in Ohio at the Spartan race is up to your waist, and depending on how much you weigh, you'll go deep. It's like quicksand, and it's horrible. It is depressing. It beats your mind into a pulp.
So we're gonna, yeah. So we're gonna go ahead, but we're gonna have to back up here in a second. So the first Spartan race I ever did, one of the penalty was instead of doing burpees, you had to do a lap. And I think you remember this. And instead of it just being like a lap, that you had like a mini sandbag. Yeah. And then you had to go, and there was this red mud sand thing. And I'm 6'3", and it was up to my belly button, my navel. So anybody else will probably up there like their chest or neck or anything like that, and you're just grinding through, and then the sandbag has mud on it, and it's just miserable. Yeah. But anyway, okay, so let's back up. So how did you find out about a Spartan race, and explain what a Spartan race is?
So after we did those first 2 races, my buddy Chris Bember called me up, and he's like, dude, have you ever heard of these Spartan races? I'm like, no, what is that? They're like, there's these races that are like really catching fire, and they're like, you know, all over the U.S. at different places or whatever. So we Googled it up, and we saw that there was one in Palmerton, Pennsylvania, which is down by the Poconos. So we're like, all right, do you want to do this? So we signed up for it.
Yeah.
It was in July. It was the day we did the race was pushing 92 degrees.
Probably high humidity.
Oh, it was horrible. But anyway, so a Spartan race. Spartan race is a race that they're very well known now. They were they were semi well known in 2016, but they were kind of making their way to what they are now.
Right.
They've grown a lot.
Yes, they have.
They've
Yeah.
really grown a lot and expanded. So it's a race that basically it challenges you mentally and physically. There's 3 different races.
Main races.
Three main races. There's different ones that you can do.
Yeah.
It's the sprint, the super, and the beast. The sprint is 5K.
Yeah.
The super is a 10K, maybe a little more. And then the beast is a half marathon.
Right. And for people that like, the obstacles in those are usually like, I think we kind of discussed, are like monkey bars. There's something called a twister where it's like a little metal thing where your handles kind of move around. But then there's like Atlas carry where you carry this big boulder.
My favorite obstacle, bender.
Oh, I hate bender. Explain what bender is.
So bender is basically these bars that you have to climb up, but as you come up, the bars are going this way. So you have to kind of...
So at some point you're almost upside down.
Yeah, at some point you're almost upside down, so you kind of have to crawl backwards to go over top. And it's fun. I like it.
For me, it's all mental, right? So because like I know I'm one false, because at the peak of it, because you have to you're literally like upside down like this, and then you have to like go over the bars, right? And a lot of it is you just got to do it. Like at some point you just have to throw yourself, get your momentum, get your weight over it. That messes with you, because if you mess up and you slip, you're falling 10, 15 feet to the ground.
And, the one thing about the Spartan races, which, now that you're saying that, is they don't put pads down there for you to fall on.
Mm-mm.
If you fall, you're falling on the ground.
Yeah.
So it makes it even more physically, not only physically challenging, but mentally challenging. Like, if I'm going to try to do this, I got to do it.
Danger is very real there.
Oh, it is. People get hurt all the time. I mean, no serious injuries, but, I mean, I was at a race, I was at a race when it was a winter race. It was in PA. It was called the Greek Peak race. And they used to do this winter race. It was before COVID happened, but it was a winter race, and it was very icy. And there was probably, I don't know, 6-7 inches of snow on the ground.
Oof.
But I saw the person in front of me break their leg.
Ouch.
Because they slipped. And we were running in the woods.
Yeah.
And she caught her foot on a root that was underneath the snow that she didn't see, and her leg went like this. I mean, I didn't see a bone pop out, but we heard it break.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I did a Spartan race in Florida. 2 years ago? A year ago? 2 years ago? A year ago?
I think it was a year. No?
A year? Yeah, it was a little over a year ago.
Yeah,
It was January last year. Yeah. And they were doing a rope climb, like a typical gym class hero rope climb.
You told me this.
Yeah, and the dude got to the top, smacked the bell, and then he slipped, and he smacked his head on the poles that were holding the thing up, and blood was just everywhere. Yeah. He was fine. Yeah. I mean, not fine, but like, nothing
serious.
No serious thing, and like, it's scary, anyways, I digress. And so, explain the terrain and why it's not just like you're going like or a 5K, 3 miles. Right. So like Palmerton, let's talk about Palmerton. Palmerton is a ski resort.
Correct.
And you're going up a double black diamond mountain. So like all you skiers know how steep that shit is, right? And so there's nothing flat there.
No. And like you've done Palmerton the one time. So Palmerton is one of the most challenging ones in the country.
Wasn't it ranked like the top 5 hardest?
It's the third, actually.
Third, yeah.
Yeah. So the way they have Palmerton set up is to break you from the beginning. Because from the start line, you go right up the mountain. There's no, hey, we're going to run on the flat for a little bit, get your legs warmed up. No, you go right up. It's 1.2 miles straight up.
With obstacles on the way up.
Yeah, with a couple obstacles on the way up.
Yeah.
It's meant to break you from the get-go. Now, the terrain is tough because, one, it's hot. There's no shade.
No.
The hills are not flat.
They're not hills.
The mountains are not flat.
Yeah.
There's holes, and the grass is long, and you really have to watch your footing going up. There's rocks. So it's challenging.
And that's the thing is it's made on purpose. They don't just throw obstacles there, just be like, oh, we can put an obstacle here. Every obstacle is meant to challenge you to make the next obstacle harder.
Right.
You know, and so one of the things that they did is like they had just like a little. I remember the first time I did Palmerton, before the pandemic. The first obstacle was a 3-foot wall, right? Just a 3-foot wall, just go right over. Here's the problem. It was halfway up the damn mountain, and you're steep. So like, yeah, it's a 3-foot wall, but it's really like a 6-foot wall.
Yeah, when you're trying to go over it as you're going on an incline.
Yeah, and so you're trying to jump up, but like gravity's trying to take you the other way, and it's like, you know, and then you finally get up the mountain, and what do they give you?
Right.
A 70-pound sandbag.
Yep.
At that one.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm sorry, continue.
No, but you know, so not only is like the hills in that one challenging, so most of the Spartan races, what makes it even challenging to run is where they give you paths to run at. It's basically a one-person lane.
Yeah.
So it's not like, you know, you can go around people easily. It's very hard terrain with rocks and roots, and you know, but it's very narrow.
Yeah.
So they're trying to force you to slow down.
Yeah. Because if you go off the track, it's very dangerous. Like, because there's prickers everywhere. There's poison ivy. Like,
it's
at your own risk.
Yeah, they use the natural wonders around you to make this, but they also don't take, like, if there's poison ivy here, they're not going to take it out.
Right.
They're going to make it so if you want to go through it, it's on you.
But yeah, they'll make a path so that's
right. But I'm saying, like, if there's poison ivy, like, you know, 3 feet to the right, they're not going to take it out.
No. Trust me, no, they don't.
So it, you know, it challenges you physically, it challenges you mentally.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the one thing that I've always enjoyed most about the Spartan races is just the thought that they put into it.
Yeah.
Like, the obstacles are challenging, but they're very well made. And if you look at the time that they put into putting these courses together and roping them off and putting these obstacles together, I mean, it's just they care about it.
And that's cool because they're very proud of it. Like, you pay for it's expensive.
It is expensive.
But you pay for what you get.
Exactly.
You know, they take as much. It's almost like they're saying, we're going to charge them this much, but you're going to get your money's worth.
Right.
You know, the thing I like about OCR, especially Spartan, is the community.
Yeah, the community is wonderful. You know, everybody's cheering everybody on. There's no really negativity.
No.
It doesn't matter if you're at, you know, peak physical shape or if you're just getting started.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's just out there cheering you on. If you need to sit down and take a breather, there's someone standing there right next to you saying, "Hey, if you need help, come on, let's go. Get up.
Yeah.
You got to finish this.
Yeah.
You can do it."
Mm-hmm.
So it means a lot, and it's nice. It's like a big family.
It is a big family, and you don't really get that too many other places, especially as you get older. You know, because one of the things that we mentioned before we started recording is it's you versus you.
Yeah.
Right. You know,
You versus you.
like, most of us aren't the elites, right? Like, we do it just to challenge ourselves, and everybody else knows that, right? And so there was a time where I just sit down, or like I always roll my ankle at least once, right?
At least once.
And somebody always comes up and says, "Hey man, you good? You need help?" And sometimes they'll like give me, you know, help me up. And then there's this one time at the sandbag carry in Ohio, and you literally have to, doing a sandbag, you have a 70-pound sandbag on your shoulder, and if you remember, it's like a cliff you're climbing up, because you literally have to put your hands in the ground to climb up.
Right.
And
you're not standing straight up as you're going. You're pretty vertical with the ground.
Yeah, and it's high.
Yeah.
And it was during the Beast, which was the half marathon one, and not even kidding, every single muscle in both my legs cramped up, and I face planted, and I couldn't move. I couldn't stretch them out. I was just screwed, right? And somebody saw it, and he stopped, and he got me those gummies that have a lot of like salt and sodium in it. And he let me and he has like a drink, and he let me drink it, and then he stayed with me until my legs started working again.
Yeah.
He didn't have to do that.
No.
I didn't ask him to do that.
Right.
You know, but he did.
Yeah.
You know, and that community aspect is really cool. You know, and one of the things that you said before, and I want you to touch on again, is how it is for your mental health.
Yeah. So, you know, it's good. You hear a lot of stories from people that it changes their life. And it might sound stupid, but in retrospect, if anyone's ever done a Spartan race or been part of a community like that and have goals, it's not stupid at all. It really does. And honestly, like for me, it really helped me with a lot of things that I struggled with in my life, as far as, you know, just, you know, ups and downs with happiness and ups and downs with, you know, depression here and there. And when I got hooked on doing all the races that I do, it really changed a lot for me, because it gave me a sense of, you know, I love having goals.
Yeah.
You know, I set new goals every year. Every single year I set new goals. And unfortunately, COVID kind of, you know, put a damper on that. So I didn't, you know, I struggled with it a little bit, not being able to do it all. But
I think everybody did a little bit.
Yeah, but you know, last summer I ran the best races and the best times I've ever had in my life.
Right.
You know, with my 5Ks and 10Ks, and you know, the Beast on the Bay. You know, all that stuff. So it really does give you a sense of something to work for and look forward to.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah, and I kind of had a similar experience, you know, and you know this, I've told you this story 100 times, but like, you're the one that, and you know, obviously, got me into obstacle course racing.
Yeah.
I was in a very dark time in my life, and I was very down on myself, where I didn't think I was going to come out of that darkness, you know, and we don't need to get into the whys or anything like that, but it was around now.
Yeah.
5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
Actually, no. 7 years ago.
Jeez.
Yeah. Time flies. And you said, Dave, I signed you up for something called Beast on the Bay. I already paid for it. You're doing it.
Yep. I remember.
And I had no idea what it was. I said, what is it? And you're like, it's an obstacle course race. And I'm like, oh, cool. Sounds fun. You know, and you're like, no, it's 10 miles. And these obstacles are obstacles. Like, they're not just like little air things that you go through, you know, like you do into bouncy houses. They're like legit obstacles. And he's like, and you said, you have to train for this. And it gave me something to work for. And then when I finally did the Beast on the Bay, it gave me such a sense of accomplishment, and I felt so proud of myself for accomplishing it that it got me out of it. It got me out of that funk. And because obstacle course races, if you get a good one, are going to test you mentally as much as physically. Right. You know, and so one of the things that you do is like, and I've said this 100 times, is miles 1 through 3 are cool. Like your adrenaline's pumping, you're going, you know, you're tired, but that's because like your muscles are still a little tight. But miles like 3 through like 8 are just suck, you know, especially if you're not used to it. But it forces you to believe in yourself.
Right.
Because you can quit, or you can keep going. And it makes you believe in yourself. And every single time, I was miserable that first time. I don't think I moved off the couch afterwards for hours. Yeah. But it allowed me to believe in myself again and say I can do it. Right. And it's because of, one, you, and two, obstacle course races allowed me to believe in myself in a way that I didn't think I was going to be able to again.
Yeah. So it's funny because I remember after you did the Beast on the Bay, like, I was very proud that you finished it, and it was awesome to see. But then I was like, hey, do you want to do this little Spartan race in Pittsburgh? Yeah. I was like, it's only 3.5 miles. And I remember you were like, oh yeah, I just did 10 miles, and it's all good. Yeah. And I was like, and then we do the Spartan race, and afterwards I was like, how'd you like? You're like, wow. That was so much harder than the 10 mile
it
one.
Was.
I was like, I told you, man, it's a different animal.
I swear to God, that 3-mile Spartan race, which is by far the easiest Spartan race there is.
Yeah, I know.
Because that was like mixed together and just like done on a whim
Yeah.
because of like the weather and everything. That Spartan sprint, that 5K, was so much harder than the Beast.
You're like, man, you weren't kidding.
Oh my God.
I was like, yeah, I know, it's a different animal.
But then because I'm a big dumb ox, I saw like this big shiny medal. I'm like, ooh, what's that?
Yeah.
And you're like, that's a trifecta medal. I'm like, what's a trifecta medal? And they're like, you have to do a sprint, a super, and a beast in one
In 1 year.
1 year. And I'm like, well, I want to do that. And your mouth said, yeah, you can do it. Your eyes said, dude, you almost died on this 5K. What the hell are you doing? You know, and I believe you said something along the lines of like, okay, if you're going to do this, you're going to have to train really hard for
If
it.
you're going to do that, you really, really got to train for it.
Yeah. And that's the cool thing about Spartan races is like this, the sprints you can kind of come and,
Yeah,
you know,
you
whatever.
can really push. You know, and not to take anything away from anybody, but the Spartan sprints are just one of those things where you can push through it.
And a lot of people, like most of the people that do the sprints do the open, which means it's way less competitive.
Right.
And you don't have to do the burpees. They
Right.
want you to do them, but you don't have to.
Right.
And so, and a lot of people did that, you know, but pride gets in the way.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a big believer in, not to take anything away from anyone else.
No.
I'm just talking about me personally.
Yeah.
But if you're going to do something, do it. Don't just do it to say, oh, yeah, I completed a Spartan race. If you want to do it, compete against yourself to get a better time than you did before. Compete with yourself to say, all right, I did it. But not only did I do it, I did it 45 minutes faster than I thought I could ever do it.
And you're 100% right. I didn't realize that until my like 5th Spartan race, right? It's like, you can do them, and then after a while you're like, woohoo.
Yeah.
But like, if you're not competing against yourself and trying to get a better time, then what are we doing?
Right.
You know, and that's one and like the thing about Spartan races, I don't think people understand, and I think we kind of touched on this earlier, is they purposely put obstacles in certain spots to make them harder or make the next one harder.
Right.
You know, so there's an obstacle called the wall, the dunk wall,
Yes.
and the dunk wall is this little floaty thing that sits on top of water that they dug up, and it's just mud. It's barely water. It's mainly mud.
It's mud.
You know, and so you go underneath the dunk wall. You have to go underneath the dunk wall. That's the obstacle. Go underneath the dunk wall.
There's no going around it.
No, or else you're done.
Yeah.
You
It's
know,
under.
you go under. And so everything is just full of mud. And it's just one thing to be wet, but another thing to be like slick with the mud that they have there. And then the very next obstacle is, what's it called? The
vertical one with the rope.
yes.
I can't remember what the name of that one is.
But it's like a 15, 20 foot
wall with a rope.
wall
You
at
actually, and the rope. It's a 15, 20-foot wall, but the rope is only 6 feet, so you got to run up to get to the rope.
Well, and that's the other thing, though, with a lot of these Spartan, what they do is you would think that they give you more of a break with the heart, like with the beast, because it's a half mile and they're trying to like, it's harder.
Yeah.
They pull the rope up higher.
Yeah,
The bigger the race.
Right.
So like with the sprint,
it's longer.
yeah, you can almost get the rope from the ground.
Right.
But the beast, it's 3/4 of the way, it's 2/3 of the way up there.
Yeah.
And so with slick ass shoes and your hands are soaking wet, you have to like run up this wall that's like this,
Yeah.
and then grab the rope and pull you over.
Yeah. And unfortunately for you, the first beast you did, it happened to be raining for like a month prior to that, so the mud was outrageous.
I still have nightmares about that ride.
The mud was outrageous. They had to add extra miles to go around certain parts because of the mud.
So it ended up being like 16 miles.
Yeah, and I it's funny because I remember when you came out of the dunk wall that first time, and I mean,
Because that was at the very end.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it was, I mean, you couldn't even see your eyes. There was so much mud, and not to mention there's so much mud. Sometimes it's hard to get out of the pit after you go under the dunk wall. And I remember that too. You were like trying to get out, and then you go from this. Nope, gotta go to this spot to get. Nope, can't get out there.
It would be like whack-a-mole because like my head would kind of pop up and I'd slide back down.
So it just makes that's what makes it challenging, and especially if you have, 100 to 800 people that finish before you, that mud just gets slicker and slicker the more people that are on it.
Yeah, and that's the, to me, almost the misery of it, but that's the fun of it.
Yeah.
Is it really pushes to see what you're. David Goggins always said, when you think you're done, you're only about what he said, like 40%.
Yep.
And there's some truth to that.
There is truth to that.
Because
people don't realize what they're capable of. Because everybody has that where their mind's just saying, all right, enough is enough.
yeah,
But and that is how it is for most people, including myself, and But like obviously, like David Goggins isn't human, and
Yeah.
he's found a way to say, nope, I can still go another 60%.
yeah, and that's one thing that Spartan races, I think, pull out of you,
Oh yeah.
is because, I mean, I'm a man of a certain size, and during Spartan season I'm always a lot thinner, more and better shape than I am now, but my body is not made to go that distance.
No.
And especially not including the obstacles, right? But I do it,
Right.
and I do most of the obstacles, and the ones I don't do, I do the burpees for.
Right.
So it's very. Your brain can be your best friend, but also be your worst enemy.
Yeah.
And Spartan races show you that you got way more to give than what your brain says.
Oh, 100%. And it like you said though, it is a lot different than just going out and running 13 miles. I feel like if you're going out and just trying to run 13 miles, it's easier to give up than it is when you put yourself in that situation at a Spartan race.
Yeah, you really are. You really know what you're made of
Yeah.
if you finish those races.
Yeah.
Like they'll say at the finish line.
Oh yeah.
You know you're a Spartan.
And like I said, when you jump over that fire and then that person hands you that medal, it's such a sense of accomplishment. It really is. And it's something that I've grown to love.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, it's become part of my life.
Yeah.
I do them. I try to do them every year. Obviously, I didn't get to do one last year just because of my schedule and my kids are getting older and I got stuff to do. But I mean, racing in general has just become part of my life. I mean, I love it. I'm obsessed with it in the summer. Whether it's a 5K, whether it's a Spartan race, whether it's the Beast on the Bay.
Yeah.
I'm always just looking for something to push myself a little bit more and to do better than I did the time before.
And that's the cool thing with races in general is there's never good enough.
No.
You can, because it's you versus you.
Right.
You can always do better.
Yeah, like I said, I ran some of my best times over the summer, and I still was like, I feel like I could just do it a little bit faster.
Absolutely.
Next time I want to get this time, or I'm proud of myself because that was the best time I've had. But if I wouldn't have slowed down here, then I would have had this time. So I'm always like fighting with myself, like, all right, so maybe if I do a couple extra miles this time before this race, then I can do this time.
Right. And that's so. One thing that I do, especially when I'm like at the beginning of the race season, when I'm not as good shape as I am, is I'll compete with myself. Yeah. And I'll say like, okay, if I don't make it to that tree without stopping, I'm a bitch. But it brings out the best in you, because especially us, but we're athletes on a team, and you can't replace that competitive spirit that you have. But this is close.
It is, and like unfortunately, like I love racing with you and Chris, and Chris hasn't been able to race in a couple years.
Right.
But him and I we've always just, my goal was always to beat him. He's
Right.
always beaten me.
Yeah.
And even in a straight 10K or 5K, he always just gets me by that much.
Why is that?
I don't know, but I'll tell you right now, if he would have raced me last summer, I would have beat him in every single one, which makes me angry that he was not racing then. So we talked at the beginning of this year, and we were talking about our New Year's resolutions, and he wants to get back into it, and
Good.
So I'm looking forward to this racing year because I want to, I have goals that I've set for myself, and I have people that I want to beat, and hopefully that happens.
And here's one of the Spartan race that we usually do is the trifecta weekend. What the trifecta weekend is in one weekend you have all three of the main races. You have a sprint, the super on Sunday, the supers in the morning, then sprints in the afternoon, and then you have the beast Saturday.
Correct. Yep.
And you do it in one weekend, and then and we used to go, and that was right outside of Pittsburgh area, but in Ohio.
So the first year we did it, it was more towards Warren, Ohio.
Yeah.
And the last time we did it, it was like by Steubenville.
Yeah.
It was weird. We were in West Virginia, Steubenville, and Pennsylvania, all on the same trip.
We actually would go through 3 states just to get something to eat.
Yeah, I remember that. I was like, well, this is weird. This is like, but anyway, so it was more towards Steubenville, Ohio.
Yeah, and the reason I bring that up though was because it was 2 hours, 3 hours away, And the problem though is they moved the Ohio race to Cincinnati, which is
pushing almost 6.
6.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to make excuses, but it was just so much better when it was closer because like we do have families, we do have kids, like we have work and life and everything. But
it was always a good weekend though.
It was that first trifecta weekend I did, because that was the 3rd year that I did it, because the first year was just Beast on the Bay, the second year was Beast on the Bay and the sprint, and then the 3rd year was the trifecta. So one of the obstacles that they have is called a bucket brigade. Okay, and what bucket brigade is, for the people that don't know, is it's just a industrial bucket, and then they fill it up with gravel, and it's like 50 pounds.
Yeah, 50 to 60.
60,
yeah.
Around there. But back then the rule was you couldn't put it on your shoulders. Right. You had to carry it. Whether it was like on one hand or both hands. Like if you could carry it with one hand, good on you. But and like you said, the course was so muddy that you're just slipping and sliding, you're falling down, you're dropping the bucket, then you have to pick up the bucket, and then, and everything. And I remember it was about a quarter mile through the woods and all the muck and all the mud, and I finally get to the end of the bucket brigade challenge, and I sat the bucket down and I just collapsed. I fell. Not fell, but like I just exhausted. Right. And the person and one of the workers there was like, do you need me to take you back? Meaning to the area, right. The camp. Right. And every fiber in my being wanted to be like, yes, get me the hell out of this. Yeah. Because I went from the Beast on the Bay, which is a great accomplishment, I'm not trying to discount that, to the Beast on the Bay, and then a Spartan race, which at the time was harder than the Beast on the Bay, right. but was a very easy Spartan race in terms of Spartan races, to a half marathon of some of the worst conditions I've ever seen, with all the mud and everything like that. But I finished. I got my stuff together. But because I'm learning from you, and that was a big life lesson for me. It's just because that's how you do it doesn't mean that's how I need to do it.
That's absolutely 100% true.
And because you don't eat.
I do not.
You can't.
No.
Because you feel all some sorts of way.
Yeah, it makes me feel sick.
Right. I need to eat.
Or else it makes you feel sick.
Right. And because I'm doing this half marathon Spartan race that's incredibly hard on no food. And but then after the race, that food tastes so freaking good.
Oh, it's the best. That is the best part about it, man. You finish a nice race, you get to eat what you want.
Yeah.
And put those calories back.
You have to, because you still have 2 more races the next day.
Yeah. Well, that first year you did the Beast. We did the Beast. We did the Beast on Saturday. Then you and I just did the sprint, and then we did Palmerton that year.
Oh yeah, we didn't do the super.
Because Bimber was gonna stay and do the sprint, but he ended up leaving. So
right, I forgot about that.
You and I did the sprint, and then we went to Palmerton in July, and that's how we got our trifecta that year.
You're right, and so I thought the Spartan Beast in Ohio was the hardest race I'll ever have to do.
Yeah.
The Spartan Super at Palmerton, I don't have any words. Like,
see, and that's funny because that's another one where you're like, okay, well, I just did this ridiculous 13, almost 16-mile Beast in the mud.
Yeah.
It's not going to get any harder. And I was like, oh, wait until you go to Palmerton. Because I was like, I remember you standing at the start line just looking up and going, oh. And I was like, yeah, we got to go all the way up there. then we got to come down, and we got to go back up.
Right.
And again, July, heat.
Yeah.
It's challenging. For me, it's the hardest race I've ever done.
It is the hardest race I've ever done because, and if it's your first time doing it and you don't know what you don't know, you finally make it up the mountain. You're exhausted.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh my God, I did it. You still have 7 miles to go.
Yeah, and then you got to go all the way back down that mountain, then turn around and just go
Right back up.
Again.
You go up and down mountain 3.5 times.
Yep.
And it's just, and the false peaks.
Yeah.
So you're going up this double black diamond hill, and then you're like, oh, and you hear people talking, they're like,
Yeah.
they're like, oh, we're at the top, guys, just keep moving, and then it's a false plateau.
Yeah, you're like, oh, never mind. Go.
That happens like 3 times.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah, it is.
But that was kind of the cool thing, though, for me, is because, like I said, you saw the progression, right? The first year was Beast on the Bay, second year was Beast on the Bay and Spartan Race, the Spartan Sprint. The third year was the Beast on the Bay and the trifecta, but I did the Beast and then the Sprint and then Palmer 10 in July. Then
the trifecta.
and then we did a trifecta where we did the Beast and then the Super in the morning, and that really taught me I'm capable of so much more than what I'm giving out.
Yeah.
Because every time I thought doing one race was the biggest accomplishment, and then when you do the Spartan Beast, and then you do basically 8 miles the next morning, not even like basically 12 hours later, or 24 hours later, and then later that afternoon you do another 5K of the same obstacles, and you do them all.
Yeah.
It's an accomplishment that you can't put into words.
No, and like I said, that one year we did the trifecta, and I tried to do the trail race too. So we did.
Yeah, that was nuts.
Did all 4 one weekend, and that was difficult.
Explain what the trail race is.
So the trail race it's a Spartan race, essentially the same thing, just they take the obstacles out. So I think it was a 10K with just no obstacles. So it's the same terrain, same hills, same mud, just no obstacles. So,
but it's still hard, though.
It is hard.
But it goes to show how difficult the race is, even when you take the obstacles out, is
Right.
because you're exhausted by the end of a trail run.
Yeah. So that was challenging doing all 4 in one weekend. But again, I'm always looking for new stuff to do. So
What's it called? Where the step above the Beast?
the ultra.
Have you thought about doing an ultra?
I've thought about it. Again, there's not a lot of ultras around here anymore. They used to have the one in Ohio, and I was planning on doing it if they were going to bring it back to Ohio. And then, I had it all signed up for. Then COVID came, and it kind of got canceled that year. And then the following year, I wanted to just do the trifecta because I missed doing that the year before because
Right.
of COVID. And then now they're not even, around us anymore. But I hope to, honestly, someday I do hope to do one.
I think you should.
I think it'd be fun.
Yeah.
That's a whole different animal, though.
Well, the ultra is 2 Bs,
Yes.
so it's a full marathon.
It's about it's about 30 miles total. They try to get it around 30 miles. So they add a little bit, and for that, like you got to bring extra shoes,
Extra clothes, food.
Because you halfway through you got to change your socks.
Yeah.
You got to change your shoes.
But there's like a pullover area where you are allowed to do that.
Yeah, they give you a bucket.
Yeah.
And then you can fill the bucket up with food or extra clothes, socks, whatever you need. And then there's a little area in between where you can kind of take a minute and change up and refill your water or eat a sandwich or whatever you want to do. And then you can continue on.
And you get a nice little belt buckle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I want one of those someday.
Those are pretty cool.
Those are cool. I would have to totally change my life in order to be thinking about that.
Yeah.
But you never know.
You never know, and like I said, I'm always looking for new stuff to do. And
What's next though for you? Would it be an ultra?
that would be an ultra. And honestly, an ultra or a full marathon is on my radar.
Yeah. You know what's next though?
Again, it's just gotta. I don't know. It's a lot.
I want to know, and so I deal with a lot of, and I'm being very transparent here. I deal with a lot of mental health issues, anxiety, depression, and I lose faith in myself very easily.
Mm-hmm.
But part of me it has that, because I listen to Goggins a lot, right? And I want to know what I can do, and I've already done all that stuff.
Yeah.
So what's next, right? And I want to push myself to see where I can go.
Yeah.
And an ultra beast is on my list of things to do. I've never done a half marathon, a true half marathon, so I'd like to do that. I'd like to do a marathon. I'd like to do that. Was it that 4:48?
Oh yeah.
That would be interesting.
Yeah. That'd be fun.
It'd be hard.
Oh yeah.
You're basically doing over a 5K every hour for 2 straight days.
Pretty much.
I'd have to lose a lot of body fat to get there, because you can't be heavy and do that.
No, it would just tear your knees apart.
Yeah. Well, and that's the one thing about the Spartan races that I do like in obstacle course races is very rarely is it on like hard surface, so you're not getting that bam, bam, bam on your feet and on your knees. But so like up until the like last year, I would every once in a while I would run a lap around a peninsula, which is 13.1 miles, right? And I would be in so much pain afterwards because you're just smacking that concrete the whole time.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's tough on the knees.
Yeah.
And the hips. That's the one thing. Like I like the Presque Isle Half Marathon.
Mm-hmm.
I do because it's local.
Yeah.
But after doing it, I mean, my hips hurt because it's just concrete, and it just tears your hip, and it's so flat, And
Yeah.
I actually do a half marathon out in Warren, on the Kinzu Beach, and it's not on the beach; it's around the beach. You go across the Kinzu Dam, and it's actually really fun.
Oh, that'd be
it's
cool.
on the roads, but it doesn't, because it's up and down hills. It just doesn't give you that same sense as running on that flat ground for 2 hours.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, during the pandemic, you, me, and Allison,
yeah,
we did the virtual beast,
down there, yeah.
which ended up as a half marathon and everything. And by the end of it, all 3 of us were
it's
dying.
it hurts a little.
And I was at my physical peak.
Yeah.
Like I was 245, and I was hurting bad.
Yeah. So, but like I said, there's always new challenges to do, and honestly, if you start somewhere,
Yeah.
like what I like to do is, I'm part of the Area Runners Club, so I do all those races.
Mm-hmm.
And normally in the summer they have one a month, and then there's other little small ones here and there.
Yeah.
Like I'm doing.
The Dan Rice days and all that.
Yeah, like the Dan Rice Days and all those ones. But I do the Asbury, the 3 series every year.
My buddy Jesse has been asking me to do that.
That's great. That one's fun.
Is it fun?
Yeah. So the one in February, it's February 18th. That one is more. It's not timed. It's just go out and let's get things started for the year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a 4-mile race through Asbury.
Oh, that'd be beautiful.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
It really is. Depending on the weather. I mean, you gotta be careful because the bridges are a little icy.
Yeah.
And then the summer and fall ones are the competitive ones.
Yeah.
Those are fun.
Yeah.
I've seen Jesse there before.
Yeah. He's a stud.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's still doing it, but there's literally a 2-year period where he ran like 3 to 5 miles every day.
Yeah.
Like full Goggins it. Like whether it was like 0 degrees, snowing, raining sideways, 100 degrees, he ran every single day. That's impressive.
Yeah, it is.
But and that's the cool thing though is we kind of touched on this earlier is there's no finish line. There's a finish line, but there's no finish line.
No, there isn't.
You always can do a little better.
Oh yeah. There's always something else that you can, and I think about that all the time too. I'm like, what can I do next that just to challenge myself,
Mm-hmm.
But and I honestly thought about getting into biking and trying to do like a triathlon,
Yeah.
something like that.
I think you'd be good at that though.
Yeah, I thought about it, but I'm not really big into biking. I mean, I like swimming.
You've been you've been in a pool your whole life, so you're a great swimmer.
Yeah. Oh, I can transition into another story. So let me tell you the story about this race that I did in Warren that I did not prepare myself.
I always like hearing not prepared stories.
Yeah. So my buddy Chris, who lives in Warren, is like, oh, they have this big race every summer in Warren, and it's a team race.
Okay.
So it's a half marathon, and then it's a 22-mile bike, and then it's a 2.5-mile swim, and then it's a
In a river.
yeah, in the Allegheny, yeah. And then it's a
Is it upstream or downstream?
well, you gotta go. It's both.
Oh, okay.
It's basically 1.5 miles up, and then a mile back. Yeah. Anyways, and
Sorry.
then it's a bunch of different small stuff. Like you have another 4.5-mile race that you do, and then kayaking or a canoe. You can choose which one you want to do. And then, anyways, so he's like, well, you know, and he works at this place called Whirly's, which is a big company down there that makes cups.
Okay.
They're the ones that sponsor it.
Oh, okay.
It's called the Tango. So he goes, hey, we have a bunch of my friends here that are looking for someone that wants to run because none of them like to run. They just like to do like the orienteering, which is like they mark like certain areas in the woods and you have a map and you got to go find them, but you like run to the spots.
Oh, so it's not like
No.
marked or anything.
No, you have to follow a map just for this orienteering section.
Okay.
So they have people that like to do that. They like to do canoeing and the biking. They're like, do you want to run? Do you want to swim? I said, yeah, I swam in grade school.
Yeah.
I can do this.
In a pool.
And I was in good running. I was in good running
Oh,
shape
yeah.
then. So I was like, yeah, half marathon, great. I love it. So I get there, and you know the half marathon. It starts at the YMCA down there, and the half marathon's first. So I run the half marathon, run a decent time. You know, Chris is running with me, and then I finish, and then the bike goes off. Okay, so I'm waiting, and after the bike's done, I have to do the swim part.
Okay.
And I'm waiting, and I'm like seeing these people get like their flippers on and their wetsuits, and I'm like, what? Yeah, right. I was like, this can't be that hard. So, bike finishes, jump in the water, I start swimming. And I'm just swimming along, and I'm not even half a mile in, and I'm dead. Like, I start cramping up so bad that I had to go to the shore, because my legs were, like, literally cramping up so bad, because I was so dehydrated.
Wow.
Because I just ran, Anyways, long story short, I had to be a tough guy and try to swim it without flippers and, you know, a wetsuit and whatnot.
Yeah.
It took me 4 hours to swim 2.5 miles, and it was
How long?
4 hours.
To swim 2.5 miles.
Yes, because I'm swimming upstream and you're swimming against the current on the way back, which is very difficult.
Yeah.
First of all, in relevance of running, I'm like 2.5 miles is nothing.
Yeah.
And swimming, it's a lot farther than you think. But that and honestly, like when I finished, I was very proud of myself. But
Yeah.
I mean, physically, when I stood up after I got done doing the swim,
Yeah.
I thought there was a chance I might need to go to the hospital.
That bad.
Oh yeah, I couldn't even stand.
Wow.
Yeah, I tried to stand up, then I had to sit. I mean, I was so dizzy, I was so dehydrated.
You exerted yourself that hard.
Oh, it was It was just so much more than I thought.
Because
Like,
of the current?
Just because of the current and the distance, like 2.5 miles of swimming. I'm not traveling like I'm running.
Yeah.
Like in my mind, I was like 2.5 miles isn't that far. I was like I run that all the time.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is not that hard. Well, it was.
Have you done it since?
No,
No.
I haven't.
Are you going to?
Yeah, you know, I was actually going to get back into it last summer, but Bimber didn't end up doing it because obviously Jen was pregnant at the time, and
Yeah, that's hard to do.
Yeah, they just had a lot going on.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping we'll get back into that this summer.
Are you going to bring flippers?
I'm not doing the swimming anymore. I already told him, I was like, I'll run. I'll do the half marathon. No, I would do the swimming again. I just would be more prepared.
Honestly, like, and I might be way off on this one, but sometimes it's easier just to kind of get back on the horse than it is to wait.
Yeah.
And what I mean is like that pause in between the half marathon and the swimming might have actually hurt you.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Because your muscles are like, okay, it's time to recover.
Yeah.
And then you start getting a little stiff, a little tightened up, and then, you know.
And I kept walking around, and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna keep moving, so I don't for that reason, because I didn't want my body to start cramping up and then shut down. But I did eat something in between, and I was like, you know, all right, I had a couple bananas, and then I drank some water, and I was like, all right, let's do this. And it was so much harder than I thought. It really was. I mean,
I don't, because I would be like, oh, that sounds cool. I want to try that. But then I'm like, what the hell am I thinking? Like, I don't swim anymore. I don't. I last time.
I just thought it was. I mean, they asked me to swim, and I was like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
I'm up for it, but it was hard.
Yeah. Like I'm out of breath at your parents' pool when I go from one side to the other, and that's like 20 feet. You know, I go back and forth. And like I always wanted like the obstacle course races to be part of my life. As long as my body can do it, I want to do it, right? And Roman loves doing it too, and I want to be able to do them with him.
Right.
You know, but but kind of going back to what we were saying earlier though, is you train your body for different things, right? You know, like you need to train for an obstacle course races. You need to train for that, but part of me wants to like. One thing that always interested me was strongman.
Oh yeah.
Like I said, the Eddie Halls and the Brian Shaws of the world, and the Mountain and those guys. And I'm not saying I would be like that, but part of me would be like kind of see if I can do a strongman competition and just like get big and strong and see, if I can throw a keg over something. I thought that would be kind of cool.
Yeah. There's a lot of cool stuff out there. And those axe competitions are crazy, and those look so much cooler too.
The axe competition.
Yeah, so like where they have to like chop the wood as fast as they
Oh
can.
yeah, those are cool.
And you looking at it like that looks easy.
Yeah.
I guarantee it's not.
It ain't easy.
They're splitting those in like 3 swings.
Yeah. I'm exhausted after I had a tree fall down my backyard. It took me like a week to chop up those, and I had a chainsaw, but. And that kind of goes back to what we were saying though, is just like I always want to know what's next.
Yeah, there's always so much out there.
Yeah.
There really is. There's a lot out there, and it's fun knowing like you can go this direction or that direction, and
yeah,
there's just new things to do.
Yeah, and I'm not done with Spartan races, not by a long shot.
Yeah, me either.
And Roman did the virtual ones and everything, and then he did the terrain race. And he's been begging me to do another race since then. I think he just likes the shiny medals, which I do too. I mean, that's why we all do it. But but it's going to be a good season this year,
I hope so.
And
I'm looking forward to it.
I am too, and it's good that we kind of get back on the horse again and kind of do it.
I agree.
We're running short on time here because I try to keep it within an hour, and we're almost about an hour right now. So real quick, kind of like quick fire here. Who are your Rumble winners, women's and men's?
I don't know. I honestly, it's tough. I don't know.
Do you think it'll be Punk? Do you think
I would like to see CM Punk win?
Okay.
But I don't know if he's ready to win. If that makes sense.
I kind of want to see Cody finish his story.
Yeah.
But part of me would like to see like Drew McIntyre do it. But I think it'll be between Punk and Cody.
I would be very surprised if they weren't the last 2 in the ring.
Yeah, I could almost see them doing doing it so that they both end up in the main event, because Seth Rollins is hurt.
Yeah.
So they may have one of them win the title at the Elimination Chamber, which is the next month, and a month after is WrestleMania, and then they can main event WrestleMania because the big guy, he's coming for the head of the table.
Oh, he is.
He's now on the board of directors for what's it called?
Yeah, the company that owns WWE
and
the
UFC.
Yeah.
Like Dwayne Johnson, I don't think he's doing movies anymore.
Honestly, when's the last time he was you've seen him being in a movie or coming up with a movie? I do know that he plans on making a live action Moana movie for Disney.
Yes, I know that.
So I don't know how long that is in his plans, but it looks like he's all business now.
Yeah, because he did just a cameo in the last Fast and Furious movie. I haven't seen it, but I know he does it. And then he did a couple voiceovers for Super Pets or whatever, but he hasn't really done a blockbuster movie since before the pandemic.
Yeah, it's been a while.
And so it's been 3 years.
But it'll be good to see him back in the ring.
It will be, and I don't expect him to win just because Roman's the head of the table. That's his shtick. That's his gimmick.
What if he does?
But he really is the head of the table. He's on the board of directors.
Right.
So he can do whatever he wants, really.
Yeah.
You know.
I'll be interested to see. I'll be interested to see the story. It'll be cool to see.
That's what I'm looking forward to. Is because it's so. The Rock has always been lingering on Roman Reigns' head of the table gimmick since it started, and so because everybody knows the biggest draw in that family was always The Rock.
Oh yeah.
You know, he's always been the man. You know, because he was one of the two men at the peak of pro wrestling, the Attitude Era, with him and Steve Austin. And so this will always cement the head of the table thing, and the story's going to be very good.
And it's interesting to think that, and obviously, most people know like they were supposed to be at last year's WrestleMania. They were supposed to wrestle, so you'd almost assume that this whole head of the table thing started with this
lead up to it.
Yeah, you'd have to assume that.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thought. I actually never really thought of that.
Yeah, like thinking, we're gonna do this head of the table thing with knowing WrestleMania in April.
Yeah.
Roman Reigns and The Rock, and The Rock is always going to be the head of the table.
There's also a rumor going around that The Rock may like intervene or do something. He not might main event this WrestleMania and do what he did with Cena and do the whole year build up to the head of the table at WrestleMania 41, which I think is in like LA or something like that. You know, I don't want to wait a whole year. I want it to happen
right now.
Yeah, and you can tell that story from Royal Rumble till WrestleMania.
Oh, for sure.
That's 2.5 months. It doesn't need
to be drug on that long.
No, and The Rock doesn't even need to be. The problem though is they're both part timers, right? Yeah. So Roman is only on like once a month or once every other month or like once every other week, or he's not on a lot. And The Rock's never on it, you know. So they're gonna have to do something where they have to just be there.
Well, and normally, like for instance, like Brock Lesnar. I mean, normally between the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, he's there a lot more than he is throughout the year.
Right.
Because that's their busy season.
Yeah, and I expect Roman Reigns to be there a lot, but The Rock owns 5 major multi-billion-dollar companies. Like, something's got to give.
Yeah.
You know, he owns the UFL. He owns WWE now. He owns the $7 industry thing. He owns that tequila company. He owns something else.
A lot.
Yeah, like crazy.
Yeah.
But I'm that will break records.
No, it will.
So, all right, man. Well, I think that's a good spot to wrap up.
Yeah.
I appreciate your being patient and dealing with that ID10T problem. I do apologize for that. It was a good conversation, but I think we kind of covered the main points that we wanted to cover.
Yeah.
We'll have to have you on here soon. I will be very busy coming up because I got a couple things going on, a couple meetings I have to do. I'm like The Rock. I just got meetings after meetings after meetings. Oh, and by the way, I'm getting married in like 2.5 weeks.
Yes.
You know, so we'll both be very busy and getting ready for that.
Yes.
Is your best man speech ready?
Almost.
Oh, good. Behave. All right. So before we hang up, I want you to guys hang up. 35. Hang up. We are still selling Roman Dave Podcast merch. We are selling Roman Dave Podcast shirts and Roman Dave Podcast water bottles. So if you are interested in that, please reach out to me at romandavepodcast@gmail.com. We have Roman Dave Podcast on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. So please reach out. If you guys have any topics that you want to hear us talk about, please message me. I'd be happy to discuss everything. If you have any questions, I would love to be able to answer those questions. So feel free to reach out whenever you guys have a question. And then don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. We need more followers. Roman is always trying to come up with new ideas about how we can get more followers and more episodes. I do have a good episode coming out here pretty soon of me and Roman and actually Steph doing a back workout at the YMCA. And that was pretty good. That was a good workout. You get to see how much we have to work on as far as doing pull-ups. That was entertaining for the 3 of us to attempt pull-ups. It was to the point where the pull-up machine was just like, I can't add any more weight. Like, you just got to do it yourself, buddy. But yeah, so subscribe, like, share. Roman and Dave podcast. I'll catch you guys down the road.